Hello everybody, we're going to talk about Return to Helgen today and some problems players have raised. Excuse me if I sniff a bit because I've seem to have developed a bit of hay fever and it is autumn here. So anyhow, rule one, you're responsible for your own mod list, not me. I have no say whatsoever in what you do with your mod list. So your mod list, the crashes it causes, the conflicts you have, that's on you. I expect you to accept responsibility for that. Any attempts to put responsibility for your choices onto somebody else will result in me ignoring you, maybe being sarcastic. So let's not see any of the blame game thing because it's your fault. Right now, I'm going to deal with misnomer. Well, not misnomer. Something players get wrong, right? Now, if you imagine you install a mod, you've had your mod list 5 years, no problems. You install a mod, it suddenly starts crashing. It must be the new mod, right? That's a logical conclusion. It's a fair conclusion. It's also wrong. Right, that's not how modding works. Now, I'm going to give you an example now, just so you understand why that's wrong. Now, imagine you installed a landmine in your mod list as your very first choice. It didn't have any problems because there's nobody there to step on it. There's no other mods in the list. You install 15 more mods. None of them go in the same location as the landmine, so none of them trigger the landmine. So your mod list is still safe. It is still working perfectly well. And for 5 years, you use that mod list with no issues. And you're absolutely confident the mod list is sound, it's got no issues whatsoever, and you're utterly convinced of that fact. Then you get a new mod, let's say Return to Helgen, and you install it, and it goes in the same spot as the landmine. Boom! The landmine explodes, damaging your game. It must be the new mod. You didn't have any crashes before because it was stable for 5 years. It has to be the new mod. But the new mod only exploded because it stepped on the landmine that was on your system in the first place. That landmine was always there, waiting for somebody to step on it. So you take Helgen out, you get a new mod, you install it, it goes in the same place again, boom! That's a buggy mod too, so you take that mod out, put another one in, it steps on the landmine, boom! Suddenly you've got dozens of mods you can't run because they're all buggy. But they're not. The landman is what's causing the bug, not the mods. So it's possible to have a landman in your mod list waiting for another mod to step on it, and then you blame the new mod when actually the problem was an old mod that you've had. So remember that, right? Now, in the case of mods and issues that come up with like my mods like made in 2016, hasn't been well before that, it hasn't been updated since 2016. So it's been stable now for 6 years, and people are suddenly developing issues. Why would that happen? Well, either Bethesda's updated the patch and broken a few things, in which case all of you would be experiencing the same issue, and you aren't, or there are mods that are coming to light or been out for a while that people have started using that are creating conflicts. Now, some people reported doors. Now, I'm smart enough not to edit default game items unnecessarily, so I always try to avoid it. That does create new problems, confusing players, but it avoids many bigger problems. And this video is about these problems. Right now, if you imagine, right, I use default game doors. I don't edit them. There's no conflict there. I just use them. Imagine some other mod did edit a conflict. It did edit a door, either deliberately or accidentally. Right, my mod would use that edited door. Any bug the other mod introduced with its edited door would now be in my mod. Would create that crash. Even though my mod didn't edit the door, the other mod will make it appear like it has. Right? Because my mod doesn't edit the door, it doesn't matter where in the load order the edit is, it's never going to be overridden by my mod because my mod didn't edit that form ID, so it will not override the buggy mod. Now, when I fixed FCOM by making my CUO overhaul fix the bugs, I did it by editing the buggy areas that FCOM had edited and correcting it. So my mod effectively became a patch to fix FCOM, which annoyed the FCOM producer greatly because he was a troll, liked attacking modders, but didn't like modders to fix his things to make a point. But by not editing the door, right, I do not override the bug and the bug remains, and it stays there until the mod that caused it is removed. In this case, it's the mod that edited the door. Now, moving on a bit from that, Helgen does have some issues, and some of them were caused by the design of Skyrim. Like, for instance, right, it would have been easy for me to tick a box and start a quest, but they removed that box. So I had to find other ways. Now, you could use dialogue to start a quest, but that requires a quest to start the dialogue to start the quest, so it's like chicken and the egg. So you can either attach it to a door, but that'd be editing an in-game item, creating the very conflict I've just been talking about, and I didn't do that. Or you could use a trigger box. You put a trigger box in front of the door, guy walks through the door, enters the trigger box, starts your quest. That's what I did. That's what happens in Solitude. My own, custom-made, unusable by any other mod, trigger box sat there waiting for you to enter it, triggers mod, starts my quest line, restores Helgen. How can that cause a conflict? Anything editing Helgen might cause a crash at that point, because my mod edits Helgen, and if you've got two mods that edit Helgen, then you're running two mods you know will conflict, which is against my advice. My advice is never run two mods you know will conflict. You've ignored what I've said, you've got a crash. That's your problem, right? But anyhow, moving on. Right, you enter trigger box, it triggers Helgen. Helgen reappears. You go to Helgen. Now we enter the next problem, right? And this is a design issue. My problem. Now I assumed wrongly that players who wanted to join the Legion would go to a Legion officer and talk to them. So I placed my Legion officers in places where they'd have to run through a trigger box to get to the officer. Right, so every time they entered Helgen, run through the trigger box, update the quest available, officer had something to say. Unfortunately, players didn't do that. Apparently, when you want to do a return to Helgen mod, you don't run through Helgen. And apparently, when you want to join the Legion, you don't talk to Legion officers. Who knew? But that's the way it worked. It created confusion. But I had to do that for several reasons. One of them was the trigger box thing, and the tick box missing. The other was it was the early development of the mod, and I needed to get the mod moving forward, and at the same time update any older games so they would always remain backwards compatible with the new versions of the mod. So I did that by making each quest a standalone quest and linking it via the trigger box. So if I was to update one quest, then the only thing that would act a bit funky or maybe be a bit weird would be the old quest you were already running, and that would run normally, and then you'd get the new version on the next quest, so you'd automatically be able to continue with the updated version without any problems. It would be backwards compatible. Trouble is the whole system with the trigger box, having to run through the trigger box and go to a Legion officer to get Legion quests, confused players. Yes, they walk amongst us. No, but the problem is, right, it's logical to me, but it wasn't logical to players, and that's where the confusion came in. So on the first two phases of the 4-phase mod, that's the patrols, as in going to the barracks to get the patrols, going to the commander in the commander's tower to get commander's orders, confuse people. And they didn't run through Helgen, they didn't go to those towers, they didn't talk to those people, and they didn't think that Helgen might require them to go to Helgen to get missions. There's a lot of different reasons, but it confused players. That was a design issue on my part. I should have done something else, like put a big banner over the heads or something. I can't figure it out. To me, I thought it was a very smart way of doing it at the time, and I thought it was being quite clever. In phases 3 and 4, I did a very different approach. Right? In phases 3 and 4, I added just linear quests, one fed onto the other. So each quest started the next one in chain. Nobody had any problems with them. They worked fine. They were great. But that was the linear part of the mod. The beginning part of the mod supported Stormcloaks and Legion. It's only when you got to phase 2 it was Legion only. Right? So phase 1 was Stormcloaks and things. So it was dynamic. It multi-branched. And that required a vastly different approach. So that created an issue. The other issue is the battle for Helgen. The battle for Helgen itself was it uses use dead command and various scripts to just tell the main script when a bad guy dies, so it can count the bad guys. But that's another buggy command, but it's the only way I could do it. So when you have a dead script on the character, when it dies, it informs the script this character's dead. And because of the bug, not always reliably informing, the quest scripts about deaths, sometimes it miscounted. It would just not get the message. It'd be like a radio thing where you don't press the thing and the message doesn't get broadcast. And it did it in Oblivion, it's done it in Skyrim, right? So when it says, are the 16 dead? Yes, well, that's the end of the battle then. Right, it doesn't do it. It just says there's still 15, there's one more to die when actually they're all dead. So yeah, and that was a buggy. So what I recommend with that is before you start the Battle of Helgen is save the game, because that is a known issue that might work that way. And if you've got a save, you can just reload the save and start again. It should be an auto save, to be honest. Though it says as you enter, mind you, it's a quest mod, so maybe not. But it says that you save it before the Battle for Helgen, and that should cure the problem. There's an awful lot of bugs in Skyrim that I had to work around when making these mods. They don't always lead to the best results. But that's basically it. That's everything you need to know. But understand, right, you're responsible for your own mod list. Anything you put in it is your fault, right? Do not try and pass the buck on to anybody else, because nobody else had a say in what you put in your mod list. And if you do bash, patch, merge and clean mods, and then you come to me asking for help, I'm going to know. I'm an experienced modder. You will not be able to hide that from me. And if you do try, it makes it impossible for me to help you anyway. The thing to remember is, right, if you keep things simple, it's easy to make, easy to fix, easy to identify problems. As soon as you bash, patch and merge, it's like sticking everything in a barrel, giving it a good shake and going, here, put them back in order. You know, it makes it damn hard. And if I was to produce a fix, and I was to give it out, and I knew it was working on a normal game that was in a state I understood, you know, it might not work for you. And you'd come back to me saying your fix doesn't work. And I'd be going, that's weird, because it works for everybody else. Why is my fix that clearly fixes this problem not working for everybody? So I scrapped the fix that does work, because your game is in a state I can't predict, because you patch and merged it. In other words, you make it harder for me to make a stable mod, because your game isn't stable. Your game isn't in a known state. Your game is not reliable. And you doing that affects everybody else that uses my mod, because my fix gets scrapped because of your feedback. So it creates lots of problems, and it's seriously, it is not funny to waste time dealing with people that have got their game bash, patch, merged and cleaned, right, and have to waste hundreds of hours checking things that are only on their system. It isn't funny at all. It's quite annoying, in fact. So I do not recommend it. I will not help those that do it, and I do expect everybody to take responsibility for their own mod list because of that type of person. You see, I know players will always seek to pass the buck onto a mod maker or somebody else for their own problems, and they will be arsey, they will be aggressive, and they will generally be rude, because it will be your fault, not mine, you've done this to my system, because they think being like that will get the player to feel, well, the modder to feel guilty. It doesn't work that way. The modder thinks you're being an ass, and he ignores you. So yeah, take responsibility for your own mod list. That's a good start. Right, and from there on, there's always hope. But if you are going to ignore the advice already given, nobody can help you. You're on your own. I'll just recognise that and skip to the end, you know. Anyway, I'm on the door issue. I'm keeping an eye on where it goes, because 2 people have got it now, and I would like to know why that's happening. It could be a corrupt download. Could be a number of things. So we're going to go over that really quickly now, just to identify or cut down the things it could be. I'll apply my experience to it. First of all, your mod list, your problem. That's the obvious one. Second one, it's got to be a mod conflict. It has to be a mod conflict, something that's edited them doors that my mods use, right? Because my mod is a big mod, it's huge. It's one of the biggest mods for Skyrim. It covers a lot of ground, it uses a lot of default resources without editing them. It doesn't create many conflicts, but it does need default items to be in a default state. And the very nature of mods is many newbie modders edit things in the game, and they don't know that's a bad thing to do, right? So they create the issues. So I'm pretty sure it's a mod conflict in some way, and I'm pretty sure something in them lists has edited something Helgen needs, and that's the conflict right there. So I'd start looking in that location if I were you. There are other causes, but they're highly unlikely. But mod corruption is also one of them. That's been known to cause all kinds of random issues. Anyway, if someone's been cleaning my mods and releasing the cleaned version and people downloaded the cleaned version, there you go, right there. That could be the cause of it. But the default one I've got doesn't have the issue. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one. Hopefully this video has educated you, enlightened you, and provided some entertainment. Right? It says, if not, sorry, just the way it is. See you in the next one.